Our bodies talk long before our mouths do, and long before our thoughts do. Our energies are exchanging. If you have a customer come in, they may feel what you're feeling. So, what do you want them to be feeling? Maybe you want to be feeling better in your own body.
Taking a minute to be myself, don't need no help. We keep on rising.
All right. Welcome back. Welcome back to Unlocking Commerce and Business. I am your hostess, Connie Davis, and really, really important conversation today that's going to land with every single human being that is listening. And my guest today, we are going to get into some conversation that you wouldn't expect on a commerce show that is classified as an entrepreneurial show. But today we're going to talk a little bit about what happens when your body already knows that a deal is wrong. And the body may know before your brain catches up, before you find words in that deal, in your chest, in your gut, in all of the back of your neck, all of these parts of our body that, our guest today, we're going to get into, we were never really taught to listen to. So we're going to push it down. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the body, how it screams at us, no different than an unhappy or dissatisfied customer in our businesses. And what happens when we actually shrink ourselves down, or we're undercharging, or we're doing all the kind of sabotaging things that happen in an entrepreneur's journey, which is really a gauntlet of finding ourselves. And today's guest spent a number of years learning to do the opposite. And Tammy, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. And I know that you did not find your way to this system inside of our body, the way that we operate our body, the easy way either. So many of us are kind of on that journey, and that's certainly what brought us together, is that common point of view and discovery. So thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah. I'm pleased to have you because this is a conversation, and we talked about this in the initial meet and greet where we really connected and said there's a lot of synergy here. And as this show is called Unlocking Commerce and Business, I have been waiting to have this conversation with someone that really gets it from a business sense, from a physical sense, from a therapeutic and somatic sense, which most people kind of think is a little woo-woo out there, and you keep it separate from your business life. But can you tell us a little bit about your background? I want to get into your story and how you had this aha moment that something was really going on that forced you to kind of go, am I listening to everything else except for what's going on inside? And that exchange of value, of valuable signals and messages that was happening, and how you came to know that. Can you share a little bit about your background and story with the listeners here? Because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been an entrepreneur for close to 20 years. It's all home based. My husband and I run companies together. And 4 years ago, we had grown the companies exponentially. I think in a 4-year period, we tripled our revenue. And from the outside, it looked like we had it all. Like we were a power couple. We were making money, we were doing the thing. But inside, I was highly dissatisfied. I was overwhelmed. I was drowning. I was so, so, so unhappy. And I didn't really know what was going on. We're serial entrepreneurs. So we had probably 6 different things in the fire at once. And I was like, okay, I can't live like this. Yeah, great. We're making money. What does that mean if you're not happy at the end of the night? What does that mean? And our entire lives were business. being husband and wife, we didn't really have a marriage. We had a business partnership. And I wanted more of a marriage. I wanted the success. I wanted it all. Come on, give me it all. Why can't I have a good feeling in my body when I'm having this? What's the point of having all the success if I feel like crap on the inside? And so there was a point where I wanted out, and I didn't really know how to get out. I wanted to be able to replace my income and not have anything suffer. Like, I didn't want the money to suffer in changing. So a girlfriend of mine started selling nail polish, a network marketing company online. And I'm like, oh, hey, I'll do one more thing. As I'm a serial entrepreneur, I'll just do one more thing, and I'll do that because that's kind of different. And that's my own thing. And it was the first time that I had ever tried to sell to women. It's the first time I had ever sold anything online. Like, one of our companies the biggest company was a trucking company. It's very masculine. I was very in my masculine energy because it's very transactional. It's like, somebody calls me, can you pick this up and deliver it here? And it's like, yes, I can, or no, I can't. There's no emotions. There's no feelings.
Right.
There's none of that there. Very transactional. But selling nail polish to women, that's a whole other story, apparently. I learned this. I hired a business coach, and one of the first things I learned was that to sell to women, you got to make them feel something.
Mhm.
And I was like, I don't know really what that means. I don't know how to make somebody feel something. I was never really taught that. Like, what is that? And so one day I was watching my stories, like other people's stories on Instagram. There was this girl that she sold makeup online. I was just seeing how they made people feel things. And this girl had just moved. She was lonely. She was missing her friends and her family. And she cried on her stories.
Oh, wow.
And I felt something. And I'm like, oh, I feel something. And then the next day I was watching her on her stories again and saying, oh, thank you for all the reach outs and the love and the community support that she got. And I'm like, okay, I really get that. So that's it. That's how you make people feel something. You cry on your stories. I've since learned there's many other ways to do it. But anyway, this was me at the time. I had no ideas. I'm like, we're going to try this.
Why not?
So yeah, why not? So I tried it. I said, I had been on my stories for about a year now. And I said, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to think of something that's emotional and close to me. And I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be authentic. And I'm just going to express this emotion, express the crying. So I got there, I started recording, and the emotion of it came up. I even got to the point that there was just a tiny little bit of water in my eyes, and then my body went, nope, you're not having any of that. And then it was shut down to the point that I was completely fine. I had no access to that emotion whatsoever. And I thought, well, that's a little weird, but okay, whatever. I'll try another day. I tried another day, same thing. I tried it like 3 or 4 times. And it was the same thing every time. And I'm like, this is so not normal. Why is my body doing this? It's doing it automatically. Like, I don't understand what's going on. And so I thought back, I said, when was the last time I had even cried? And it had been over a year, which was a little abnormal. I at least cry once or twice a year normally. And I'm like, okay, this isn't normal. So I went to therapy. I'm like, okay, I need this. I need to know what's going on. It's just crazy, not normal. So I went to therapy, and it took me 4 months of therapy to even feel safe enough in my body to let it go, to let the emotion go. And then it was like 6 months of crying almost once a day because the dam broke.
Yeah,
It was a freaking backlog. And it was like years and years and years. And there was an incident that happened when I was 3 that that caused this. So, we don't necessarily have to go into that incident, but it's just that the lifelong journey of suppression that I discovered, no wonder there was such a backlog. Like, no wonder. I remember even one time about 6 months before I went to therapy that my one and only dog that I loved with all of my heart, they told me that he was going to die within the year.
Oh,
And at the time, I had no emotion about it whatsoever. I'm like, oh, okay. And then the very first day that I cried, I bawled over that. He was still alive at the time, but thank goodness. Thank
yeah.
goodness he was, because I was able to start grieving. I was able to have access to those feelings. So when we suppress, it's not good. We don't have access to our full range of feelings. So anyway, after therapy, I did like EMDR therapy, I did hypnotherapy, I did a bunch of different coaches, a bunch of different therapies. I listened to like 300 people on Instagram. I read the ebooks. Like, I'm telling you, I
You were
dove headfirst into healing, figuring it all out. And then I got to a point where I was like, I feel so freaking good in my body. I know who I am and what I can bring to this life, that it's going to be criminal if I don't share this with other people. I have to share this with other people. People have to know.
So, Tammy, thank you for sharing your story because, uh, uh, you know, when I use the word intentionally unlocking commerce, like I know because I've been through a very similar journey. I spent very similar months. We're taught to seek outside. We're taught to go look in the world, go see what you're missing, go chase that, right? Go chase the money, go chase all of the experiences, the life, all of the, the things around you outside. And that's normal transactional commerce, right? We're taught to transact, to consume, and things of value are external things of value. But what we're not always taught to do is go find the valuable signals that are happening inside of us, that suppression. To me, when I hear that suppression, and if you're in the audience, what do you guys think of when you hear suppress? To me, that means quiet or press down, push it away, ignore it, all of those words that might be coming to your awareness. It's really interesting to think about, what if you didn't suppress? Like, what if you actually tuned inward instead and said, what's going on? Where did that come from? What is it that I just experienced that is not, valuable, but it's not transactional? So, talk to us a little bit about when I say the word commerce to you, Tammy, and you hear normal commerce. You've been running businesses, successful businesses. You already talked about transactions. What does the word commerce mean to you now versus what it might have meant to you later or before?
So commerce before, money, the revenue that you make, the profit that you keep, that was that's the masculine, I find. That's the transactional part. But commerce is so much more. Commerce is you. What is inside of you and what your body communicates to you, because your body's communicating to you all the time. All the time. But we're just not trained to listen. And we're going to talk about this soon, I think, but human design. I got into human design as well. And I love that system because it's more than just a personality program. Like there's Enneagram out there, there's Myers-Briggs, those are more personality um programs, and human design is body-based. What
So
is
break
the
that down.
energy?
Yeah, break that down. What do you mean body based? Because if someone's never done anything but a personality test and they tell you, this is who you are, and what is it that stood out for you about the human design connecting to the body and what you were feeling with this whole, going to therapy and trying to break loose emotions that had been stored up inside of you.
Yeah. So human design, you're you're gonna have to go to a human design site. There's a bunch of free sites you can put in and say, get my free chart in human design, and you're gonna put in your birth data and it's gonna pop out this design. So it's very close to the seven chakra system, only in human design, it's 9 systems. And one of the first systems I learned about is the emotional system. And 50% of the population have their emotional system defined, and 50% have it undefined. When you have a defined center or it's colored in on the chart, you are consistent with your energy. You are consistent with your emotions. So we'll just talk about the emotional center right now, the solar
Okay.
plexus. You have a consistent wave. You will always go up. You will have the highest highs and the joyous joys, and you will always go down into the lowest lows.
Mm.
Melancholy. And so melancholy itself is like sadness for no reason. You're just down there and you don't really know why. And you'll go back up and you'll go back down. And how often you go back and go up and go back down is kind of dependent on what's going on in your life. It could be a few hours or it could be months. If you're really stuck in a depression, in a low, it could last for months. So what I love about human design first is that it tells you who you are and who you aren't.
Mhm.
So that you can, and other people too, if you see other people's charts, who you are, you can forgive yourself for who you aren't. And this is kind of the same in the personality programs too, right? They all help with that. It helps you forgive yourself and others. And with the emotional system, if somebody has an open emotional system, that means they're an empath, basically, right? So empaths, there's a big difference between being an empath and having empathy. I consider it two separate things completely. Being an empath means you can physically feel the sensations of other people's emotions in your body. And I am emotionally defined, so I can't feel those emotions from other people in my body for that center. I can feel other centers, but for that center, I can't feel because I have my own.
Mm.
But other people feel my wave. When I'm joyous, they can feel it. And when I'm sad, they can feel it. And it comes out as sensations. And it was my coach that told me this because she had an open emotional system and I had a defined. And I'll tell you a story how it was so apparent to me. This was crazy. My mom had just passed a couple of months before this one meeting with her, and it was over Zoom. And she opened up her Zoom or her laptop. And as soon as she opened up her laptop and opened up Zoom, she got a waft of a wave before she could even see me, before she talked to me, before she even knew anything else. She got a waft of energy in her body. Her throat tightened a little bit and she got water behind her eyes. And as soon as I came on, she's like, Tammy, what's going on? What's going on? I feel this. What's happening? And she knew my emotion before even I knew my emotion. She was expressing to me because she was so in tune with her body and her energy and other people's energy. She told me what was going on. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was just thinking about my mom. Yeah, I guess I am really sad at this moment. That just blew my mind. And it was over Zoom. It's quantum, right? They
Mhm.
say they say that within 6 feet of somebody, you can feel their aura because your aura goes 3 feet forward and 3 feet in all directions, and so does everybody else's. So 6 feet away, your energies bump up against each other. And this is proven by taking EKGs. Like it's your heart, right? Your heart. You go to the
Mhm.
hospital and you get this measured. You can physically see this, right? But she was teaching me a whole different way, this quantum way. And she helped me. This was in the beginning of first years of my discovery. She helped me understand the energy between people, the energy in my own body, and how to read other people's energy, and that they're going to read mine. So I had to like really think about that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, all those people through the years where I was like grumpy, we'll call it grumpy, and they were just not understanding.
Mm,
And not understanding because it's a sensation in their own body. They're feeling it, therefore they think it's theirs. It's not.
mm. Yeah, so if they're emotionally centered or open is where that kind of exchange happens. It's kind of invisible, is what I'm hearing. So if we're thinking through as entrepreneurs and we get that gut feeling about a deal, or you get that gut feeling about a potential prospect or a customer, or you have somebody come in your office or in your storefront, that's all examples of how that can actually exchange. So we're transmitting and receiving signals is what I'm hearing you say that precedes the actual business deal and the transaction. Is that what you're saying? We put that into
Absolutely.
sense?
So our bodies talk long before our mouths do, and long before our thoughts do. Our energies are exchanging all the time. So if you have a customer come in, they may feel what you're feeling. So what do you want them to be feeling?
Hmm.
Maybe you want to be feeling better in your own body so that you're emitting a higher frequency yourself.
Right. Right. So how does that let's put that into terms for the listeners. Because a lot of people are probably sitting here going, okay, I've been into a store, you just kind of get a bad vibe. We hear these, like, I got a bad vibe about a person, or I had a gut feeling, or I just think something about them seemed off, right? So those are all phrases that I think, people in communities have probably picked up over the years, cultural, maybe they were taught those phrases from their parents or, leaders in their community, but we weren't taught necessarily how to be human. And, as part of this podcast, there are, episodes we've had talking about the human operating system, which is very complementary to human design, but it's a more of how are you emotionally wired? How do you express yourself socially? How do you express, dominance and control and leadership? And then what do you need, to feel safe and secure? And so you can navigate all of those, those gaps. So let's talk to the audience for is there any scenarios that come to mind, Tammy, where you were like, as you were going through therapy and you learned these techniques for yourself that you can point backwards to a few different moments as an entrepreneur where you're like, that's what that was.
I don't know that I can necessarily point to my customers or my clients, but I can point it to my husband because
Oh, let's talk about
we
that.
were such in relation. Okay, we were business partners, right?
Yeah.
So I can relate so much more to him, and my goodness. And I'm not sure if I'm going to answer your question properly here, but let me
Okay.
give you
We're gonna
what I
meander.
think.
That's totally fine. I think because partnerships, whether it's a customer or, a vendor, I mean, it still applies, right? It's something that we're interacting with through business and trying to exchange value. So let's go there.
Yeah. So, when my husband would say something that triggered me, like historically triggered me, like, you know, people know how to push your buttons, whether they mean to or not. And there was a point after learning what was going on in my body that he would say the same thing he'd normally say that would normally trigger me. And in the moment, I would be like, oh, I'm not triggered anymore
Mm,
because now I recognize that the sensation in my body, because that's all a trigger is, right? Somebody says something and you get upset or whatever about it, right? That's the meaning of a trigger. So you getting upset about it has a sensation, has a particular sensation. And every little different way, every emotion that you have has a different sensation in the body. And when I started to recognize and know that each sensation kind of meant something else. Um, as like anger was something, frustration was something else, sadness, like they all have different sensations. And so when I got to know mine, because everybody's is different, I can't tell you that one sensation means a certain thing because everybody's is different, right?
Right.
You have to get to know your own sensations. So that's it. When I started feeling a sensation that I recognized as a certain emotion in a triggering moment or a moment that used to be triggering, I'd be like, "Oh, I recognize this." And it wouldn't let me um get triggered anymore, right? Because now I understand that sensations are neutral. They don't mean anything. It's all about the meaning we make up in our minds about what it means. So I was able to recognize those sensations and choose to react in a different way and show up in the relationship in a different way. And I'm telling you, my
Mhm.
goodness, what a difference that made in my relationship with him. Whew, so good.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so let's go back to, I want to relay some of that. I'm thinking again, commerce from within. We're having this value exchange. Your body's talking to you, you're listening, just like you'd listen to a customer, or a customer would listen to the person that they're going in to do business with, right? But we're talking about it's going on inside. So you're having this dialogue inside of yourself, and it's between mind and body. We're having this conversation. So if you're listening, just bear with us for a second because we're going to meander here a little bit. And I want you to think openly because we don't usually talk about this in business, but it absolutely matters because if we're trying to exchange value, but we're all like, suppressed and locked up on the inside, we're not thinking in a way that we're going to really create a memorable or a meaningful experience with that customer, that other human. So, Tammy, you just shared, this is going on with your husband. You guys are having these exchanges in your business partnership as vendors would normally. And what was one of the first things that your husband recognized when you started shifting and you had this awareness? So now you're negotiating differently in your partnership with him. What happened?
Communication was a whole lot easier. So my norm was to shut down. My norm was just to shut down and move into the next room and not talk. And it's become so much easier for me to be able to express myself, express what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, communication is a big thing. If you can't communicate, if your body is so stuck and we're in fight or flight, then communication is very, very hard.
Yeah, because we hear, I mean, that's hard with a customer that's irate, right? They're coming in, they had a bad quality of service, they had something go wrong with their product that they bought. We can correlate that to everyday life. You go in, you're returning the merchandise, you want a refund. Those are negotiations that didn't go so well, but we're dealing with a tangible thing versus I bought a service from you and I didn't like your service, but we get emotional and we get emotional about money. We get emotional about moving money from one person to the other if it doesn't go right. And, these are all examples of how the emotion or the commerce that we're trying to perform or exchange in value, whether it's a tangible item. A couple of months ago, we had a gentleman on the show named Paul, and Paul talked about capital and capital changing hands. And he was also from Canada too, but it's a really good analogy for us to remember that we have social capital. We have, actual cash and commodities and things that are changing hands in businesses and, services that are provided. But at the center of all of it, it's the human. It's one human doing business with another human. And our bodies are talking to us at the same time that we're talking to other people. So, what are you up to these days? Like, how have you really morphed into like this integrated viewpoint now for your businesses and how you're seeing the world now? Like, what's changed for you?
Oh my goodness. So now I am a guide for other women. I help women get over overwhelm and disconnection and being stressed and all of those really difficult emotions, the confusion of not knowing who you are, um, w- what is inside of you, what is your purpose, why are you here? I help women go through all of this. And I'm telling you, I've been an entrepreneur for a very long time and I have done many, many different things. I have never been so fulfilled with this work in my life. It is the most rewarding thing I could ever have done with myself. My goodness, I'm over the
Congratulations.
moon.
Yeah, and,
Thank you.
I think we started seeing a lot of that with, like, the whole Great Resignation and, after 2020 and COVID, and everybody's kinda searching, they're doing some soul searching. So, congrats on just being able to find your way through all of that, Tammy. That's
Thank you.
hugely, a great testament for women that are kinda searching. And, so if you were to look at you said something at the beginning about you were in your masculine. How does that
Hmm.
balance feel now? What's different as a woman that's still an entrepreneur, that's still in a business relationship? Because I'm sure your husband's still running businesses. But
Hmm.
how does that dance between energies feel now?
Oh, it feels so much better. We all have masculine and feminine energy in us. I don't even actually like the name because it kind of says man and woman.
Right.
A lot of people think masculine have men and feminine has it's not about that because we all have the masculine and feminine energy in us. It's like the yin and the yang. And if you're too much of one, you perhaps need to find a little bit of the other. Because if you're too much in your feminine, if you're too much in flow, you need some structure in your life too. Like you can't just float through life and flow through life. You if you want to get somewhere, you're going to have some masculine energy to
Right.
run the business or do the thing, right? There's the masculine is the structure. And it's beautiful to have both now, to be living with emotion, to be able to deal with emotion in the moment that I need to deal with it. Like I have so many regulation tools now that when emotion comes up, I don't have to suppress it. I can process it. And one of the things I was afraid of when I was afraid of emotions is that they would come and they wouldn't go away. That they would like I'd have a crying episode and I just wouldn't stop crying, or it would never end. And that's just not true. I just know that it's not true anymore because an emotion can last as short as 90 seconds. Your anger, your sadness, whatever, it can last as short as 90 seconds, maybe 3 minutes. If you have a technique process to move that energy out. And what happens when we get triggered, we have that emotion, we move it out, there are lessons. There are lessons in those emotions that we can learn from to then make better decisions with the masculine. Where am I going to go with this next? I was in anger, so do I need to set a boundary, right? What can I do that is structured over here once this is kind of passed? So I love being in balance now. It has completely changed my life.
I think that's a really good example. And I'm going to take us back to, if you're listening and you're like, okay, well, now what does that mean for me in business? But you're still a human. Your business is an entity, but you're the entity behind the business. And no different than you create a policy to deal with irate customers. You've just dealt with an irate emotion, which could be deemed a customer on the inside of your body in your own ecosystem. So I love thinking about commerce this way as, you've got commerce within, And commerce, on the outside, there's a spiritual saying as, as within, so without. As above, so below, right? So it's head and heart, or inside and outside, and it's all connected. And you've already talked about that, those energetic fields where we're all connected. And commerce, whether we're moving a tangible item or we're giving a service to a client, coaching or therapy, or even just some kind of an advisory, strategic advisory service, how we actually communicate even in these digital channels like we're doing right here, you got policies, you got kind of belief systems going on the inside of how you're going to approach and communicate to continue that negotiation and that conversation. So we're exchanging commerce here. So I want the audience, if you're listening and you're like wondering, like, how do I apply this to my life? Think about, and Tammy, I want you to guide us through if you don't mind. What are the symptoms that they look for when they're in a place of suppression? What are some of those signals that the body's going to throw off?
So, unfortunately, when you're in suppression, you don't know it. And I would say there's at least 60% of the population that's in suppression and they have no idea. Because
Wow.
I had no idea. I was in it for a lifetime. So unless you're perhaps a woman that has had a lifetime of feeling and then all of a sudden something's going on in your life and you feel like disconnected, that's different. I was disconnected from the age of 3. I felt very close to men my entire life because I felt so disconnected from my emotion that I felt that, like the whole big big boys don't cry. You know how parents sometimes teach, or used to anyway.
Yeah.
I hope there's not too many adults that do that anymore. But yeah, big boys don't cry. That's so detrimental. That is so, my goodness, detrimental. Um, so there's all these people out in the world that are disconnected and suppressed and have no idea. And there's not even a way to even tell because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know how to
Perhaps.
activate that system inside of you that technically is trying to talk to you, but it's like the transmission, the receiver is broken.
Exactly. Exactly. You just have no idea.
Yeah.
So how do they know? Perhaps. When was the last time you cried? How often do you cry? That's one way, but that's only one way. Um, I've learned through the years that there's so many different ways to get the energy out of the body, right? So that's what I'm saying by getting the energy out of the body. When you cry, that's literally energy leaving your body. But there's also yawning, there's burping, there's swallowing, clearing your throat, there's farting. There's like probably 40 different ways to release the energy. And when those things happen, it actually activates your vagus nerve, which brings you into parasympathetic, which is what helps you come back to rest, which helps your body come back to digestion, come back to where it's normal, where there's less cortisol, there's less adrenaline, right?
Hmm.
So how do they know? I'm not sure because I didn't know. They may just have to hit rock bottom. I don't
And then
know.
it could just be some kind of catalyst moment, or there's just education opportunities like this, like on a whim, you're listening to an entrepreneur show and you're like, what are these women talking about today? Well, I thought we were talking about commerce. Well, yes, we are. We're talking about commerce inside of you, happening between you and you. And, that's why Tammy, when we connected, I'm like, yes, we can finally have this conversation because, my journey has been very similar to, this intention to seek out emotional intelligence. Everybody tells us we should have emotional intelligence when you go into your resume and your talk about this in your job interviews and all of it. We need that because we're so immersed in technology now, and that's fine. I mean, it's great to be technically capable and you have a skill set that you can use the technology and AI and all of these new techie platforms and tools that we have, but it does also increase the awareness that we need to have about how we express ourselves and what's going on in our body. Everybody wants to live a long life. And we know that, there's things that happen when you don't pay attention to the body and you're in a place of um, unrest and dis-ease, which, if you put those two words together, you end up with disease.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a time that I was listening to the book by Brene Brown, Emotion, no, what the heck was it? Atlas of the Heart. I was listening to that book. And it was that book, I remember the day, that she was talking about, I can't remember how many different emotions, and she was just describing them. And she came upon empathy. And at that moment in time, I realized I didn't have empathy. And it
Mm,
killed me, actually. I thought I had empathy all along. That was one of my cues. That was one of my cues in the beginning. Oh my God, I don't have empathy.
mm,
But how can I when I don't even know how I'm feeling? How am I supposed to know how somebody else is feeling when I don't even know how I'm feeling? Of
mm.
course I didn't have empathy. Of course I didn't. How am I supposed to know? So
That's a
that's the disconnection.
that's a very good thought-provoking just moment for if you're listening to sit with that. Like if somebody was to say you lack, sympathy or empathy or you're not compassionate, we react to that. And if we have moments to just take a pause and actually reflect on the inside, why is it that we don't? Or why are they telling us that? And we keep asking why, till we get to the root. And, so there's this language that's happening on the inside of us. And Tammy, I actually wrote an ebook and it's available. I talk about my book Rooted because what I did in Rooted was I took all of my money net language. We talk about money and language and capital and payments and all of the things. And I combined it with emotional awareness and the language of the home and commerce. And it's an incredible piece to just really provoke thought and reflection. And I think what you're talking about here is so important for, I don't care what kind of entrepreneur or corporate employee, we all are customers of one another. And we spend time with one another creating things, tangible things, moving products around, but are we building each other too? And I think that there's an opportunity more than ever with AI coming out to do a lot of the mundane work that we don't want to do. What happens when we get so quiet because AI is doing everything that we have nothing but time to reflect and or be entertained? What are we going to do? What are we going to choose?
We need to choose to be creative.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I think a lot of people seek out that busyness though, so that they can distract from those signals and messages that the body's sending, but nobody's picking up the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Yes, we need to get into our bodies.
so tell us what you're up
1,000%.
to nowadays, because speaking of that, I think that leads into like where you're really headed and what you're up to and how you are really serving these women. What have you got going on?
Yeah, so I have a course coming up. July 27th it starts, and it's called Feel Like Yourself Again.
Oh.
It has a 3 part framework: recognize, understand, choose.
Mm,
The first part is recognize. Recognize what's going on. What's going on in your body? Recognize the sensations. Recognize from head to toe. I bring you through the whole thing. What's going on? Just witnessing. The second part is understand. Now that we know, now that we've witnessed, understand it. What does it mean? What does it mean to you? And then once you recognize it, understand it, you get to choose. You get to choose how to regulate. You get to choose how to show up in life. You get to choose how to communicate. Because when we are stuck, triggered, and we don't finish the stress cycle to get back to calm, we might blame, we might criticize, we might yell, like we might do things to other people that is definitely not empathetic.
Yeah.
It is not their problem that we are having a reaction in our own bodies. That's our problem. So we need to choose to show up the way we want to show up. And we can do that easily once we understand what's going on. So that's what I'm going to help people go through.
I think that sounds incredible. And the fact that you are coming from an entrepreneurial background and you've just got this live life experience of this wake up moment where you're like, I got to pay attention to something different to get to another place, right? And I think every
Mm.
business owner has been there where they say, my business is running my life, it's taken over my life. I don't have the time and freedoms that that's really what it comes down to is, are we free to do the things we want to do when we want to do them or to feel even? So I think that's incredible work. And I thank you in advance for the work you're going to be doing with the women or the individuals that are going to join you for that workshop series. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Well, I think this has been a phenomenal show. Just a conversation that has been part of my intention with this show. And I'm really glad that we crossed each other's paths so that we could have this conversation and elevate this awareness for other people to just take a pause and find out what's there, what's in that empty space of what else could I be. I'm out there chasing the world anyway, like you said, right? You want chasing it anyway to find whatever you were trying to escape from, and it was right under your nose the whole time.
Yeah, literally.
Right. Yeah. So do you have any closing thoughts for the audience before we wrap up today?
I I don't think so. Besides, you need to know what's going on inside of you for you to understand what's going inside of others.
Mm. Yeah, and that includes their customers too. That includes all those relationships that they're investing so much time and energy into to build up a business and scale their business, is to not forget that part.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Tammy, thanks again for being on the show. For those of you that are listening, we always talk about commerce. We talk about, I probably sound like a broken record, but there is so much value in some of these conversations when we look at some of the areas that just don't really always align with the traditional way of defining business. And that's what the show is all about. This show is about bridging into the future of commerce. What does that look like? There's no hard rules. We're going to create it as we go. So thank you all for listening in. And Tammy, thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you all next time. Take care. Thank you for listening to Unlocking Commerce and Business. If this conversation resonated, here's what you can do. Subscribe for weekly conversations with survivors, innovators, and changemakers, building regenerative alternatives to extractive commerce. Share this episode with collaborators, partners, funders, and changemakers in your network. The people ready for restorative commerce need to hear these voices. Drop a comment below. Tell us what patterns you're recognizing or what solutions you're building. We read every one. Commerce is everywhere, and healing extraction patterns inside our communities creates regenerative commerce outside. Like a lighthouse, we're here, exploring and cutting through fog, pointing toward what works. Welcome to the era of restorative commerce. Until next time, explore courageously, build sovereignly. You are the source and store of value. This is Connie Davis, signing off. Thank you for being here.